She never expected the wooden mannequin from a blind woman to carry a deadly curse. The movie begins by introducing a woman named Danny, who is renovating a grand castle-style house that her husband Ted recently purchased. Since the renovation is still underway, the couple is temporarily living in a tent set up just outside the house near the front entrance. For extra security, Danny has also installed an automatic camera inside the house that takes a photo whenever it detects movement. Because the house is located in a remote area, cell phone reception is almost non-existent. Danny can only get a signal in certain spots, one of them being the upper floor of the house. As soon as her phone finally picks up a signal, she calls Ted, who is working late as a doctor at a rehabilitation center. During their conversation, Danny asks if she can invite her twin sister Darcy over for dinner the following evening. Besides wanting to spend some time together, Danny also wants to make sure Darcy is doing well. However, Ted refuses, believing that Darcy is perfectly capable of taking care of herself. Danny has good reason to be concerned, though. Darcy is recovering from brain cancer, a condition that caused her to lose her eyesight. Because of this, she has to undergo regular medical checkups and brain scans to make sure the cancer doesn't return. Although Ted turns down her request, Danny respects his decision and doesn't argue any further.
Dr. Timmis.
Hello, Dr. Timmis. Maybe we can invite my sister for dinner tomorrow evening? Would you?
Darcy can take care of herself.
After the call ends, she leaves a voice message for Darcy, hoping her twin sister will hear it soon. Night soon falls. Before going to bed, Danny steps outside to retrieve something she left in her car. However, just as she's about to head back inside, she hears a strange noise coming from the house. Sensing that something isn't right, Danny immediately goes back in to investigate. Before she can figure out where the sound is coming from, she's suddenly startled by a man with a glass eye standing at the front door.
What are you doing standing outside my house?
You left the door open. Somebody slipped inside. They're in there now.
The man introduces himself as Olin. Danny immediately demands to know why he's there. In a panicked voice, Olin begs her to unlock the door and let him inside. When Danny asks why, Olin tells her that she's in serious danger. He claims that while she was outside getting something from her car, someone secretly slipped into the house. Olin desperately urges Danny to open the door before it's too late. Naturally, Danny doesn't believe him right away. She asks why he's at her house in the first place, adding that her husband will be home soon. Strangely enough, Olin already knows that Ted won't be coming home that night because he's working late. That immediately makes Danny suspicious. Olin then reveals that he's one of Ted's patients at the rehabilitation center. He explains that he had previously heard mysterious whispers coming from behind the walls. Curious, he followed them to the house where he witnessed someone quietly sneaking inside while Danny was outside. Olin insists that he only came to save her. Even so, Danny remains unconvinced. She repeatedly calls out, hoping whoever is supposedly hiding inside will respond, but no one answers. Olin calmly tells her that the intruder will never respond. Feeling uneasy around the stranger, Danny decides she should call the police. Surprisingly, instead of panicking, Olin actually seems relieved when he hears that. The only problem is that Danny's phone has gone missing. That's the real reason she went to her car in the first place, hoping to find the phone that had suddenly disappeared. At the same time, Danny can't completely dismiss the possibility that Olin might be telling the truth. What if someone really did sneak into the house while she was outside? Not wanting to regret ignoring his warning if it turns out to be true, Danny finally gathers her courage, unlocks the door, and lets Olin inside.
Now, please, if you don't, I'm going to call the police.
Yeah, call them. I am telling you that there is someone in there with you.
I can't find my phone. It was in my car. If I open the door, what are you going to do?
I'll look around. Yeah. Good.
But what really happened to Danny? Did she make it out alive? The scene then shifts to a rehabilitation center where a man named Barrett suddenly hears loud noises coming from another patient's room. Curious, he slowly opens his door to see what's going on. However, the moment he peeks outside, his face fills with terror, and he immediately crawls underneath his bed to hide. After several moments, when everything finally goes quiet, Barrett cautiously crawls back out to check what happened. But the moment he steps into the hallway, he freezes in horror. Olin is lying there dead, his head brutally crushed beyond recognition. The only thing left intact is his glass eye. The scene then shifts to an antique shop once owned by Darcy's late mother, which Darcy now runs by herself. Even though she's blind, Darcy can recognize people simply by the sound of their voices. So the moment she hears a customer speak, she immediately realizes it's her brother-in-law, Ted.
Your mother would have been proud of you, Darcy.
Ted. Been a while, Ted.
As the owner of the shop, Darcy quickly warns Ted not to touch any of the antiques on display. According to her, some of the items in the shop are cursed objects capable of bringing terrible misfortune upon anyone who handles them. However, as a doctor who firmly believes in logic and science, Ted dismisses such supernatural claims without a second thought. At that moment, Ted notices Darcy holding an antique bell and asks what she's doing. Darcy explains that the bell is a cursed object. According to her psychic ability, anyone who rings it will be haunted by the ghost of a bellboy. The bellboy was once a hotel employee who died after falling from the 13th floor. Through her psychic visions, Darcy has also learned that 2 people have already fallen victim to the curse after ringing the bell. Darcy possesses a rare psychic ability that allows her to uncover fragments of the past simply by touching objects that once belonged to someone. Through those objects, she can witness visions connected to their owners. After explaining the bell's dark history, Darcy carefully returns it to a storage room filled with other cursed objects.
It's not something to be played with, Ted.
I'm a doctor. Science and logic.
Not long afterward, Ted hands Darcy a small cloth containing Olin's glass eye. Darcy had specifically asked for it long before. She had told Ted that if Olin ever died, she wanted one of the items he used most often. After all, Olin was considered the prime suspect in the murder of Danny, Darcy's twin sister. Ted then explains that Barrett was the one who found Olin's glass eye in his room. However, Barrett himself died of a heart attack later that same night after discovering Olin's body. Curious, Ted asks why Darcy wants the glass eye so badly. Darcy explains that she wants to know what was going through Olin's mind in his final moments. She wants to find out whether he felt any remorse for what he had done, or if he died believing he had done nothing wrong after being accused of murdering her twin sister. Since the first anniversary of Danny's death is approaching, Darcy invites Ted over for dinner. However, Ted politely declines, explaining that work has been keeping him extremely busy and that he's still working frequent night shifts. On top of that, he's occupied with settling into his new house alongside his new girlfriend, Yana. Hearing this, Darcy is visibly surprised, as she had no idea Ted was already in a new relationship. Ted explains that he met Yana through the hospital where they both work. Yana is a senior pharmaceutical sales representative who regularly visits hospitals to manage medication supplies and inventory. After Danny's death, Yana was always there for Ted, helping him through his grief, and over time, their relationship eventually turned romantic. Before leaving, Ted invites Darcy to visit his new house whenever she feels ready.
Declan Barrett died last week. Heart attack.
You found it.
I have it here in my hand. Why do you want it?
He took my sister's life.
I should get going.
After closing the shop, Darcy returns home. Once inside, she prepares herself to use her psychic ability. Without wasting any time, she gently touches Olin's glass eye and begins a psychic reading. However, what she experiences is completely unexpected. Instead of seeing Olin's regret, she receives a disturbing vision of a mysterious figure wearing a black robe and a white mask. The shocking revelation leaves Darcy speechless. Slowly, she lowers her head as tears begin to well up in her eyes, her face filled with guilt and regret. Without another moment to spare, Darcy rushes back to her late mother's antique shop. As soon as she arrives, she heads straight toward a large wooden chest that has been stored inside the shop for years. The scene then shifts to Ted's castle-like house. Early that morning, Ted wakes up to find Yana sitting in the living room holding a camera. The camera turns out to have belonged to the late Danny, and Yana had just found it while organizing some of the belongings around the house. Yana tells Ted that she couldn't sleep at all the night before because she kept seeing what looked like Danny's ghost wandering through the house. At first, Ted brushes it off, assuming Yana is simply exhausted and imagining things due to lack of sleep. However, Yana then shows him several photos stored on the camera. Most of them are old memories of Ted and Danny together, but the previous night, Yana had casually taken a picture of one of those photographs, only to be shocked when the image revealed a figure that looked exactly like Danny standing in it. Even after seeing the photo, Ted refuses to believe anything supernatural is happening. He insists it's nothing more than a camera malfunction or a trick of the lighting. Feeling increasingly uneasy about staying in the house, Yana once again asks Ted to move into her apartment for a while. Ted, however, refuses. He's convinced that Danny is dead and there's no way her spirit could be haunting the house. In the middle of their conversation, Yana mentions that a large wooden chest has just been delivered to the house from Darcy. Since the chest is locked, neither of them has any idea what's inside. Not long afterward, Darcy herself arrives at the front door.
Come in. Yana, Darcy.
Hello.
Ted welcomes her inside and introduces Yana as his new girlfriend. It soon becomes clear that Darcy hasn't come for just a short visit. She plans to stay the night. Unfortunately, her timing couldn't be worse. Ted has to leave for work immediately because the hospital is short-staffed, while Yana has already decided to return to her apartment after everything strange she experienced in the house. Realizing she arrived at an inconvenient time, Darcy tells Ted not to worry about staying with her. Since Ted can't miss work, he agrees to let Darcy stay in the house by herself.
I'm on my way to work, and Yana is staying in the city tonight.
I'm here now. I'd like to stay if that's all right.
I suppose that'd be fine.
Afterward, Darcy unlocks the large wooden chest she had sent earlier. Inside is a life-sized wooden mannequin that once belonged to her late mother. Darcy explains that the mannequin is a gift for Ted. After giving him the gift, she asks Ted to guide her to the bathroom since she's unable to see. On the way there, Ted asks about her health once again. Fortunately, Darcy tells him that her most recent medical examination showed that she's doing well.
I'll see you in the morning.
Meanwhile, Yana is far from happy with Ted's decision to let Darcy stay the night. She also feels uneasy about the wooden mannequin, finding it incredibly creepy and unable to understand why Darcy would give them something like that as a gift. Seeing how frightened Yana is, Ted promises that he'll get rid of the mannequin. However, since he's already running late for work, he decides to deal with it later and heads to the hospital. Not long after Ted leaves, Yana gets ready to leave as well.
Ted and I aren't married yet, so maybe you should take it back.
Don't you like it?
No, I find it a bizarre present to give to someone.
Before she can go, Darcy asks if Yana could make her something to eat because she's starting to feel hungry. Instead, Yana coldly tells Darcy to prepare her own meal. In the middle of their conversation, Yana suddenly freezes in shock when she notices that the wooden mannequin, which had been inside the chest just moments ago, is now sitting at the dining table. When she asks who moved it, Darcy calmly insists that she never touched it. Growing even more terrified, Yana decides to leave immediately. But just as she's about to drive away, she realizes her car keys have mysteriously vanished. She searches the entire house and even checks inside the car, but the keys are nowhere to be found.
I can't find them.
So you're staying then?
With no way to get back to her apartment, Yana reluctantly has no choice but to stay in the house with Darcy and prepare dinner. Meanwhile, Ted has just arrived at the rehabilitation center. There he begins looking through Barrett's belongings, which were collected after Barrett died of a heart attack. Among them, he discovers several disturbing sketches Barrett drew on the night before his death. Strangely, every drawing depicts a wooden mannequin that looks exactly like the one Darcy brought to the house. Even more unsettling, the sketches clearly illustrate a mannequin brutally crushing Olin's head. Back at Ted's house, dinner is finally ready, and Yana brings the food to Darcy, who has been waiting at the dining table. As they eat, the conversation turns to Yana's relationship with Ted. Yana explains that she has known Ted for about 2 years. They first met at the hospital where Ted works. As a senior pharmaceutical sales representative, Yana regularly visits hospitals to manage medication supplies, and that's how the two of them became friends. After hearing that, Darcy asks whether there had ever been anything romantic between Yana and Ted while Danny was still alive. Yana firmly denies it, insisting that she and Ted were nothing more than friends back then. After hearing her answer, Darcy begins explaining her unique psychic ability. She tells Yana that by touching an object, especially one that was frequently used by its owner, she can see visions and sense fragments of events connected to that person. As an example, Darcy recalls a widow who once came to her wanting to know whether her late husband had ever been unfaithful. After touching the man's wedding ring, Darcy discovered that he had cheated on his wife multiple times without her ever knowing. According to Darcy, personal belongings such as rings, watches, or anything that has been in close contact with someone's body are the most effective objects for using her psychic ability. Their conversation then shifts to the house itself. Darcy asks whether Yana is afraid of staying there alone whenever Ted works the night shift. Yana admits that she has never felt comfortable in the house. Ever since Danny was murdered, the place has constantly reminded her of that tragic night. She can't stop imagining Olin suddenly appearing at the front door just before Danny was found dead. After hearing that, Darcy asks another question. She wonders if Yana would open the door for a complete stranger knocking late at night. Without hesitation, Yana says no. She explains that she would never open the door for someone she didn't know because she would have no idea whether they had good intentions or meant to harm her. That answer prompts Darcy to reveal a crucial piece of the puzzle. She explains that Danny wasn't careless either. As her twin sister, Darcy knew Danny better than anyone. Danny would never have opened the door for a stranger, which means Olin could not have been the one who killed her. Through the psychic vision she experienced after touching Olin's glass eye, Darcy finally learned what had really happened that night. After Danny refused to let him inside, Olin never tried to force his way into the house. Since Danny couldn't find her phone, and Olin didn't have one either, he decided to go to the nearest police station to get help. Before leaving, he warned Danny to stay close to the front door. If she heard any strange noises inside the house, he told her to get out immediately and run somewhere safe. Sadly, Danny ignored his warning. She dismissed everything Olin had said as nothing more than nonsense. Instead of leaving the house, she searched every room trying to find the mysterious intruder Olin had mentioned. After ending the call with Ted, Yana is still upstairs when she suddenly freezes in fear. The wooden mannequin appears to be staring directly at her. Startled, she accidentally drops her phone over the railing, sending it crashing to the floor below. But when she looks back at the mannequin, it's somehow back in its original position. Curious and unsettled, Yana heads downstairs to retrieve her phone. Unable to shake the feeling that something is wrong, she walks over to the mannequin and begins examining it more closely. she notices 5 small holes in its head. Driven by curiosity, she removes the objects hidden inside one by one. Inside the holes, she finds several strands of hair, a vial of blood, a single tooth, a childhood photo of Danny and Darcy, and another photo of the twins as adults. Before Yana can make sense of what she's looking at, Darcy suddenly wakes up. Strangely, despite being blind, Darcy immediately knows exactly what Yana has done. In a firm voice, she tells Yana to put everything back where it belongs. Terrified, Yana quickly puts every item back into its original hole. She then switches off the lights in the living room and hurries back to her bedroom. Meanwhile, Darcy quietly sits at the dining table until she eventually falls asleep again. A short while later, Yana leaves her room to use the bathroom located off the living room. But while she's inside, the lights suddenly go out on their own. When she steps outside to investigate, no one is there. The only thing she sees is Darcy still asleep at the dining table, sitting directly across from the wooden mannequin. Feeling increasingly uneasy, Yana retreats back to her room. Fear keeps her wide awake, making it impossible to fall asleep. Hoping to distract herself, she picks up Danny's camera and begins watching the old recordings stored on it. At first, the footage simply shows happy moments shared by Danny and Ted, but gradually Ted's face begins to transform into Danny's, now appearing as a terrifying, ghostly figure. Horrified, Yana drops the camera onto the floor. The moment it hits the ground, the camera suddenly takes a picture by itself toward the corner of the room. As the flash goes off, Yana catches a glimpse of Danny's ghost standing there, silently signaling for her to run. Without a second thought, Yana rushes out of the bedroom and into the living room. In the middle of her panic, she suddenly hears a noise coming from inside the large wooden chest Darcy had brought to the house. When she opens it, she's both shocked and relieved to find her missing car keys inside. Wasting no time, Yana grabs the keys, runs outside, and speeds away in her car after enduring one terrifying encounter after another with Danny's ghost. After Yana escapes, Ted finally returns home. However, the entire house is pitch black. He repeatedly calls out for Darcy, but there's no response. The only thing he finds is the wooden mannequin still sitting motionless at the dining table. Ted searches the house until he eventually finds Darcy upstairs.
Darcy.
The first thing he asks is where Yana is, since she hasn't answered any of his calls. Darcy calmly explains that Yana fled the house after being terrorized by Danny's ghost. Before long, their conversation turns back to Danny's death. Once again, Darcy insists that Ivan is the man who murdered her twin sister. Ted immediately rejects the accusation, maintaining that Olin was the killer. According to Ted, Olin escaped from the rehabilitation center and came to the house to murder Danny. Darcy then reveals what she saw through her psychic vision. According to her, Olin never came to kill Danny. He came to save her. Realizing the truth, Darcy is overwhelmed with guilt. She tearfully admits that she was the one who killed Olin by crushing his head, believing he was responsible for Danny's death. Hearing that confession only convinces Ted even more that something is seriously wrong with Darcy's mind. He remembers Danny once telling him that whenever Darcy's illness flared up, she would often see and hear things that didn't actually exist. Concerned that Darcy's condition has worsened again, Ted offers to take her to the hospital for a thorough examination. But Darcy immediately refuses. She believes that if she goes to the hospital, everyone will simply label her insane. In her mind, she'll be locked away in a rehabilitation center for the rest of her life, so she refuses to be examined. Instead, Darcy says she'll only go to the hospital under one condition. Ivan must come to pick her up so she can personally avenge Danny's death. Hearing this, Ted demands to know where Darcy got all these accusations. As far as he's concerned, Ivan never even knew Danny personally. There was absolutely no reason for him to kill her. In response, Darcy reveals an even more shocking truth. According to the visions she experienced, Ivan never had a reason to murder Danny. He only did it because Ted ordered him to. Darcy tells Ted that none of this would have happened if he had simply been honest with Danny from the beginning. If he had admitted that he no longer loved her and had fallen in love with someone else, Danny would have cried, but eventually she would have accepted the truth. She would still have had the chance to move on with her life alongside Darcy. Instead, Ted chose a far crueler path. Darcy then exposes the murder plot Ted had kept hidden all along. Ted deliberately ordered Ivan to kill Danny. At first, Ivan refused and suggested that Ted simply divorce his wife, but Ted knew Danny loved him too much to ever let him go. On top of that, they had signed a prenuptial agreement. If they divorced, Ted would have been forced to split much of his wealth with Danny, including the magnificent house he had recently purchased. Unwilling to lose the fortune he had spent years building, Ted chose the most ruthless solution imaginable. According to Darcy's vision, he decided to have Danny murdered so he wouldn't have to divide his assets. Darcy also reveals that Ted wanted Danny's death to be quick, hoping she wouldn't suffer for long. Unbeknownst to Ted and Ivan, Olin had accidentally overheard their conversation through an air vent because his room was located near the room where they were discussing the murder. Darcy admits that after learning the truth about Ted, she did consider killing him herself, but in the end, she changed her mind. To her, death was too easy a punishment. She wanted Ted to lose everything he cared about, one piece at a time, starting with his new girlfriend, his career, and even the house he treasured most. Ted then reminds Darcy about the detective investigating Danny's murder and tells her to share all of her accusations with him. Ted is convinced that no one will ever believe Darcy's story because of her medical history. He even says that if the detective still has doubts, he can question Ivan directly. But Darcy refuses. Instead, she demands that Ted confess everything himself and call Ivan to the house. She wants to take revenge on Ivan with her own hands. Unfortunately, Ted claims he doesn't have the detective's phone number because it's only available at the hospital. He says he'll return to work and call the detective from the hospital phone. Before leaving, Ted deliberately leaves his cell phone behind in the house. According to his plan, once he reaches the hospital and contacts the detective, he'll have the detective call the phone he left behind. If Darcy doesn't answer, the detective will supposedly come to the house to check on her. After Ted leaves the house, Darcy is left alone, waiting. A few moments later, the cell phone Ted deliberately left behind suddenly begins to ring. Hearing the ringtone, Darcy slowly follows the sound, completely unaware that Ted has carefully set a trap for her. Before leaving, Ted had intentionally removed a large section of the second floor floorboards, creating an opening that led straight down to the first floor. He then placed his cell phone right in front of the hole. Since Darcy is blind, she relies entirely on her hearing to locate the ringing phone. Believing the sound is directly in front of her, she unknowingly walks toward the opening. The impact leaves her with a severe head injury and heavy bleeding. Everything had been meticulously planned by Ted from the very beginning as a way to eliminate Darcy without getting his own hands dirty. Back at the hospital, however, one question continues to haunt Ted. He can't understand how Darcy managed to uncover the truth behind Danny's murder in such incredible detail. Since he refuses to believe in anything supernatural, Ted immediately suspects that Ivan must have revealed everything. But Ivan repeatedly insists that he never told anyone about the murder plot. Still unconvinced, Ted orders Ivan to return to the house and make sure Darcy is truly dead. When Ivan arrives, he finds Darcy still breathing, although she's barely alive. Without leaving any evidence behind, he secretly releases a cannibalistic patient from the rehabilitation center. Before long, the patient attacks and kills Ivan. As a result, Ivan's death is treated as nothing more than the work of a violent patient who escaped, while Ted remains completely free from suspicion. On his way home, Ted receives a voicemail from Yana ending their relationship. After everything she experienced in the house, she has come to believe that Ted is far more terrifying than any of the patients he treats. To her, there is no reason to continue their relationship. When Ted finally arrives home, he discovers a mysterious package sitting in front of the door. Inside, he finds the antique bell that once belonged to Darcy. Still refusing to believe in anything supernatural, Ted rings the bell without the slightest hesitation. Moments later, the ghost of the bellboy slowly begins to appear. It becomes clear that the moment Ted rang the cursed bell, he sealed his own fate and will ultimately die at the hands of the bellboy's ghost. If you're still confused about the story, everything in this movie only truly makes sense once all of its secrets are revealed in the final act. At first, Darcy also believed that Olin was Danny's killer because that was the conclusion reached by the police. Determined to avenge her twin sister's death, Darcy used her psychic ability to control the wooden mannequin and kill Olin by crushing his head in exactly the same way Danny had been murdered. However, before Olin died, Darcy had already asked Ted to bring her one of Olin's personal belongings if anything ever happened to him. She specifically wanted his glass eye. Her goal wasn't to gather new evidence, but to discover what had been going through Olin's mind in his final moments. Did he truly regret what he had done, or did he die believing he had done nothing wrong after being accused of murdering Danny? Unfortunately, what Darcy saw through her psychic reading completely changed everything. Instead of finding a remorseless killer, she realized that she had murdered an innocent man. Through Olin's glass eye, Darcy discovered that Olin had actually gone to Danny's house to save her, not to kill her. Earlier that night, Olin had accidentally overheard Ted and Ivan discussing their plan to murder Danny at the rehabilitation center. Since he didn't have a phone, Olin rushed to Danny's house to warn her in person. Sadly, Danny believed Olin was dangerous and refused to let him inside. Left with no other choice, Olin decided to head to the nearest police station for help. But before he could get there, Ivan had already murdered Danny. Through the same psychic vision, Darcy eventually uncovered the mastermind behind Danny's murder. It wasn't Ivan, it was Ted all along. Ted hired Ivan to kill his own wife because he didn't want a divorce. If they divorced, he would have been forced to split his wealth according to their prenuptial agreement. On top of that, Ted had already started a relationship with Yana and didn't want to lose either his fortune or the beautiful house he had spent years building. After learning the truth, Darcy initially wanted to kill Ted out of revenge. But in the end, she chose a different path. Rather than giving him a quick death, she wanted to destroy his life piece by exposing all of his crimes until he lost everything that mattered to him, including his career, his home, and the people around him. Sadly, that plan never came to fruition. Ted proved to be even more cunning and managed to trap Darcy, ultimately leading to her death. Even after that, Ted continued covering up every trace of his crimes by manipulating a cannibalistic patient into killing Ivan. One by one, every loose end was erased, and Ted came dangerously close to getting away with everything. However, if you pay close attention, Darcy may have been one step ahead all along. After falling into Ted's trap and realizing she didn't have much time left to live, she appeared to put a backup plan into motion. It was as if she had already anticipated that Ted might escape justice. That's why, long before everything unfolded, Darcy had arranged for the cursed bell to be delivered to Ted as a final safeguard, ensuring that he would eventually pay for everything he had done. And that's exactly what happened. Ted may have escaped human justice, but he couldn't escape the curse Darcy left behind. His arrogance and refusal to believe in the supernatural ultimately became his downfall. The moment he rang the cursed bell, the curse was finally unleashed, sealing his fate and ensuring that he would face the consequences of every terrible crime he had committed. And with that, the story comes to an end.